Hey folks, it's Mr. Nichols. How you all doing? Right, let's imagine and pretend we're actually in the classroom today. Here is your wonderful classroom that you're used to. Boys, focus at the back. Okay, thank you. Yeah, Millie, good. Okay, so here we are in the classroom. Folks, I'm going to do one of my silly videos again here, just to really get our heads properly around this first bit that we're studying about obedience, and particularly Milgram's study of obedience, okay? Now, this is not going to be very interactive, is it? You've already got these slides on Show My Homework. I'm going to just kind of whiz through them a little bit, okay? I'm trying to go fast because I appreciate you don't want to spend hours in front of one of these videos, okay? So, here we are, looking at the concept of obedience, all right? And we're going to start with situational factors, all right? Things about the actual situation itself that make people obey, okay? Let's start with some easy and early concepts, okay? Things like the authority figure. Already mentioned in my first little introductory video, you give people authority, of course, others are more likely to obey them, all right? You can think of those. Give students in schools titles, for example, head boy, head girl, will others be obedient? Give somebody policeman, policewoman, police officer, give them those titles. Are people likely to obey? Yes, we've given them legitimate authority, okay? Now, let's jump down a little bit here. The proximity of the authority figure is going to also support this, isn't it? You imagine you're in school now and the teacher comes very, very close, okay? You're more likely to obey. The teacher goes away, is the other side of the playground or classroom, okay? And you're less likely to obey. So we know proximity of the authority figure is important. Now, people are much more likely to obey as well if the situation and the request both have legitimacy. What we mean by that is it a reasonable, legitimate expectation for the person to carry out that instruction? For example, let's imagine in my psychology class we have, I don't know, Amy is not focused over here, and the teacher, me, says, Amy, can you just concentrate please and stop talking? Now, that's a legitimate request for that situation. The request fits the situation. If I said, Amy, you're not listening, stop talking, in this classroom can you do 20 press-ups? Now that's a bit of an unreasonable request, isn't it? It doesn't really have legitimacy. Now we can expand that into real life. Imagine you're on a train and the ticket collector comes along and says, you're in the wrong seat. Okay, can you please move? Somebody else has booked that seat. Okay, that request is really legitimate and reasonable on a train in that situation. Maybe not in other situations like on a park bench. Okay, so we get these situational factors that affect, first of all, people's levels of obedience. Now, let's get into this Milgram study then. I said it on the last video, Milgram, son of Jewish refugees, okay, from World War II, had to flee for their lives because people were so ultimately obedient to Hitler's regime. It left Stanley Milgram really questioning his whole life. Why are people so obedient? So this is his background to why he went in to examine it later on. Okay. Hopefully by now you've looked at, you've looked at this Derren Brown video. It's a really nice modern just remake. So if you haven't, please look at that. Link should work on there if you're playing this as a proper PowerPoint. Okay. So we go into Milgram's study. Okay, I'm just going to jump a little bit. Milgram's original study here, okay, uses just males, 40 of them. Well, that original study is androcentric, isn't it? It's just men, okay? Would females behave the same? Well, we find out later on. Yes, they would, because he did variations. He did just a female sample, exactly the same percentage were obedient as the males, okay? He pays them, all right, $4.50. Back in those days, not a bad sum of money. Okay, might lead to more demand characteristics. Bit ethnocentric, they all come from one particular area of America, New Haven, all right? So maybe they're the sort of people who are going to be more or less obedient because of the place, the area where they're brought up in. All right? Okay, so we get into the study. Now I'm just going to jump a little bit here, apologies. Okay, now what we see is several levels of deception. The participants are not told the aim of the study. That's a key thing, okay? The aim is to really see, will they follow orders, instructions from someone who is dressed in a nice laboratory jacket with a clipboard, looks like the authority figure. Will they obey that person just because they look official, okay? They're deceived in the aim of the study. They're deceived in the drawing of lots. People put together in pairs, said, here you go, one of you is going to be the teacher, one of you is going to be the learner. Of course, both the lots actually say teacher, but it's the participant who draws that one out, says, oh, I'm the teacher. Okay, so the other person is the learner, all right? Then they're deceived because they're shown the shocking machine. This machine, I've got a picture of it down here somewhere. Let's whiz to that. Okay, this machine, by the way, is still in a museum in America. You can go and see it, okay, at some stage in your life. This machine didn't even deliver electric shocks, did it? It was fake, okay, in terms of the people are not wired up to it. But the participants see a person being wired up to it. They also themselves are given a sample shock, 45 volts. A little sting of electric, right? Quite clever that, wasn't it? 45, because Milgram gave them that shock themselves and then was asking them, essentially, would they go up to 10 times more, all right? They knew what 45 felt like, okay? So, deceived that the machine wasn't actually electrocuting, deceived in the aim of the study, deceived in drawing lots. Okay, now, this diagram is really crucial, the way they work, all right? Here we have the teacher role. Now, this is our participant. This is the person we're interested in. They're the one that we want to see, will they do the shocking, okay? Next to them, the experimenter. This is the person in the lab jacket, the authority figure, all right? And look at that proximity. This is what Milgram called touch proximity. Very close. We're much more likely to obey. Now, you'll notice that the learner, who is actually a stooge or a confederate, is actually in a different room. This is really important. Later on, we're going to learn about a buffer, okay? And I'll leave that for the moment. All right. Now, we know that the study, without going through every slide, we know that it was highly standardized so that each participant gets essentially the same experience. The experimenter had a list of verbal prompts. So when the participant hesitated or questioned the experiment, each one got the same verbal instructions. Things like, the experiment requires you to continue, okay? We also know that Milgram very cleverly had recordings of the learner in the other room, recordings of them crying out in pain, stop, I don't want this experiment to go on. Now again, these are standardized. It wasn't the real person, it's all fake, isn't it? Okay, but for the same, when they got answer 5 wrong or 10 wrong or whatever it is, okay, they'd hit a button and they'd have that same standardized feedback to the participant, who's then got to decide, am I going to be obedient and shock them for getting it wrong? Okay, so highly standardized procedures, all right? Now, I want to whiz a little bit, let me have a look to our results. Now, you'll read different things about results. That's because there's been lots of variations of this study. In the original research, and your textbook even says different. Oh, and by the way, your textbook covers this brilliantly, doesn't it? On page, I think, 21, let me have a look. Oh, look at that. Good. Golly gosh, I am a couple of pages out. Page 18, 19, folks. Tons of detail. But you don't need all that. You're never going to need all that for the exam. Summarize it right down, okay? Here are the results. So, in the original study, interestingly, 40 out of 40 participants all shocked up to 300 volts. 100% of them, okay? Something interesting happened at 300 volts. Now, the participants who are doing the shocking, up to 300 volts, they've been hearing feedback from the learner in the other room. They've been hearing them banging and screaming and saying, let me out, I don't want to continue, you're causing me pain, and so on. After 300 volts, there's silence. So they're shocking them, but no feedback. Now what would you be thinking if you're in a different room, you've been shocking someone, they've been crying with pain, now there's no noise at all? Maybe you think they've passed out, they've fainted, they've collapsed, or maybe worse, you've gone and killed them. Here we would naturally think at 300 volts, okay, everybody would drop out. Surely nobody would keep shocking, right, when they're getting no response from somebody they've been shocking in a different room, all right? Remarkably, yeah, some people do drop out. We see them start to drop out. But here's our maximum. The experiment is deemed to have finished when people go all the way to 450 volts and do it 3 times. And look at this, folks. Dylan, here's the joke again. Absolutely shocking results, because in the original study, 26 out of 40, 65% go all the way to the very end, shocking someone who may even have been dead at this point, just to be obedient. Okay? Those are our results. I'm going to leave it at that for the minute because it's a long video already. I want you to think about this. I know I've put the strengths and weaknesses, but you're bright, intelligent, hard-working people, right? What are the strengths of this study? What are the strengths of standardizing it, of using deception and so on, okay? What are the weaknesses? There are considerable concerns and limitations and ethical considerations about this. Have a think, okay? Then we'll look, I'll do another video in a few days' time maybe, looking at our explanations of why people are so obedient. We'll get into those in some depth. Looking as well at Milgram's variations. What happens when it's women? What happens when it's in a different location? What happens when that person is right there next to you? Okay? All other situational factors that will affect obedience. So folks, I hope this is useful. I hope it's nice you being in your normal classroom with me here. I feel more connected to you. All right. Remember, all this work is important. This is not making up time. You're going to be tested on this somewhere down the line in your real exams. All right. Thank you for some of you who've emailed. Really great. Email any questions, any thoughts. All right. We're just a click away. Thanks, folks. Keep safe. Keep listening to the government advice. Don't get bored with that. Don't start sneaking out and meeting friends or anything. We've all got to look after each other. Take care.